Story 1. My preschool-aged son and I were walking home from a playground park one fine summer day. As we turned onto our street, a large man, picture about 1/3 the size of Jabba the Hutt, who looked to be in his early 50s, beckoned us to cross the street. He was seated on a covered patio, about 5 feet above street level. We crossed over since this was on my street, just about a block away, roughly 10 doors down and on the opposite side from my house. The moment we stepped onto the sidewalk, without introducing himself or even offering a hello, he said the following, word for word. "Tell me why you don't clean the snow off my sidewalk." His demeanor screamed stern boss calling out a slacker vibes. I was taken aback. Did he mistake me for some unreliable worker he'd hired last winter? Or had my wife volunteered me to help this guy without mentioning it? The rest of the conversation went approximately like this. Me, waha. Jabba, I've seen you clearing snow with a snowblower. It sounded almost like an accusation. Me, well, yes. Jabba, and every time, you waste hours clearing part of the street. Me, so we can park our C. Jabba, you have a snowblower, it's easy for you. You spend all that time on your corner. You should snowblow your way to my place and get my short little walkway done in no time. Me, it's more work than you think. By the time I finish my property, I'm tired. Jabba, that's not true. I've seen you. You clean off the walk next to you, and that's longer than mine. Me, there's a disabled couple in their 80s who live next door. They can't move heavy snow. It's only about 20 feet, and I do it to be kind. Jabba, then be kind to me. I can't lift heavy snow either. But you don't care about me. If I want to go out, I have to wait until my sons come over to shovel me out and clean off my car. Me? Your sons? Sorry, sir. I'm not going to clear your snow. Have a good day. As my son and I started walking away, he tried what he clearly thought was his final, convincing offer. And this is exactly what he said. Jabba, I could pay you. Story 2. You see, I'm a 20-year-old female who works at a chain of convenience we shall call the Tree of Dollar. Working as a cashier sucks already because of COVID and entitled customers, but it's worse when your own coworkers cannot get along. Karen had just been working there at the store for perhaps only around 3 months, yet during the time she had already been promoted to key holder. The power going to her already bleached head, she was acting like she was the one in charge of us, all even though most of us were around longer or had the same position. This is where Arena comes along. Poor Arena. She was a target from day one due to her being a tad bit of a doormat. She would clean the store whenever Karen was lazy. She had to cut her break short because Karen wanted to go on her break. Even her own labeled food in the fridge was taken because Karen didn't want to spend $5 on some cheap TV dinner. The incident. It eventually got to the point where Arena finally had enough, and the two began arguing day by day all of the time. Now some information I've missed due to not being on the same shift, but the next day I came in. There was already a bad vibe in the room. Karen was muttering under her breath and talking a lot of horrible things about Arena in front of me, and the customers she was tending to in line while Arena tried to stay her distance. My boss wanted for me to have them stay distant, yet the moment I came back up front, the two were arguing over how poor the rug was being swept. "There's so much dirt on here. You think this is a barn or something?" Karen asked Arena. "It's just a small bit. I'll grab the brew." "Don't even bother. You can't even clean the rug right. Mommy and Daddy can't even show you that much. Insert racist slur here." Please note that Karen and myself are of color, yet she would always say racist things about Arena, who was white. Stereotypical things like trailer trash or some other nonsense. Arena at this point looked truly drained and walked off to go find the broom. Later, when our shift was about to end, she asked me to ring her up real quick since she didn't want Karen at her register, and I said sure. After all, she only had like 2 to 3 things, and there weren't a lot of people in line. Right away, as soon as I had finished bagging her stuff, Karen was right behind me and began yelling at us that we shouldn't be shopping on the clock. Note, this was totally okay with my boss since everyone, and I mean everyone, buys stuff on their shift. Karen wanted for Irina to clock out and then buy her stuff, but Irina of course protested. By this time, my boss and supervisors had already left us alone in the store, and it was just us along with some stalkers until the second shift arrived. More people began to enter the line and watch as Karen began to enter this huge tirade of how teens like us were so disrespectful and how she would teach us a lesson. Right away, she took out her phone and called my boss about how we were shopping on the clock and disobeying her. My boss was about to ask for our side of the story, but soon Karen hung up the phone and gave us a look like, "Ha ha, you're in trouble now." Tired and annoyed, I told her that she had to chill out, that this was not shopping on the clock, and that even if it was fine since it was allowed. Big mistake. Little note about Karen. She's a middle-aged woman who still acts like a trashy teenager from the 11th grade. Her attitude was the worst, as she would flip out on anyone without care or regard of who they were. She was already in hot water because of this, and now that the fire had been struck, she was pissed. I can't remember everything word from word, but Karen was livid. She began to insult my hair, my clothes, and saying that no one would ever want an ugly idiot like you. Now I have horrible anxiety as it is. Imagine all of this, all of the yelling, all of the cursing, everything, and the store is packed. People are watching, and here I am not knowing anything to say as I'm reliving high school all over again. I went into a panic attack. I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak, and I was crying, but I was seething. Granted, I shouldn't have said this, but the look on her face made this so worth. I shouted, "At least I'm not some freaking bimbo still here slaving away at a counter while trying to screw some piece on the side." Things got messy from there. Karen wanted to fight, but we were taken outside by the stalkers, bless them, and left to go home. I had been given a few days off to calm my nerves, but it didn't help. I felt like complete crap. The revenge. Karen made me feel like I was at my weakest point all over again, like I was trash, just as I was feeling confident over myself and everything. I wanted revenge. When I came home that day, my grandmother saw me crying and came to comfort me before leaving for a few hours. When she came back, she told me Karen wouldn't be a problem. I later got a phone call from the big boss, the district manager, over the events of that day, and after telling him my side, he said he will contact me later. I thought that I was done for, that it was over for me. But then Karen was gone for a few days. A few days turned into a week, and a week became 2. We were informed that Karen had to be tragically let go due to workplace bullying, harassment, poor customer service, and so on. She was gone. Yay, right? Not quite. It wasn't until I came home and told my grandmother what happened, and then she finally told me strike 3. Now my granny is a petty woman. Screw with her. Pray that she'll show mercy. Screw with her family. Pray that you'll die quickly. That day when she left for those few hours, I found out it was to set her plan into action. She returned to the store hoping to see Karen. My granny found out near the back on her phone talking about how disrespectful I was to her and I better watch my back. My grandmother started her plan, beginning to act as the world's most annoying customer, making spills in front of Karen, constantly interrupting her on the phone, etc. and etc. Remember when I said Karen's attitude was the worst? Yeah. She flipped. She flipped once again and lost her cool. From what my grandmother told me, Karen didn't know that my boss had arrived at the store to switch off with her, and when he saw his employee yelling at an elderly woman over a split case of water that said elderly woman was hunched over to grab, it was the nail in the coffin. Karen was screwed, then gone. I originally wasn't going to post this due to it being so long along last year, like October, and unfortunately, Irina left the job due to it stressing her out too much. From what I hear, she's doing better now, free from the terror of Karen. As for Karen, she is the reason I am now posting today. She came to the store and judging by her surprised face, she didn't think I was still around. But I was. My coworker was outside on her smoke break when Karen stormed outside and proceeded to vent to my confused coworker. Now, judging by her yelling, she was talking about me obviously. Lots of, "I can't believe that someone like here is still working here," and "I don't like liars. She's a freaking liar getting me fired, and she stinks, and she's so ugly." Other than the personal shots to my appearance. Thanks for that, Karen. I took a lot of pleasure seeing her this pissed off at seeing me. It brought me even better joy when I went to lock the doors and flipped her off away from the camera's view, smiling and all. Karen, if you ever see or read this, just know you're a jerk. Story 3. This happened a couple of months ago, not long after Christmas. One day after work, I needed to get some supplies, so I headed straight to Costco. I ran inside, grabbed a trolley, and spent about 30 minutes minding my own business while perusing the aisles. I parked the trolley a couple of feet away from myself to get a better look at an item when I suddenly felt a tap on my shoulder. Turning around, I saw a woman asking, "Where are the X items?" I don't wear a uniform to work, just black jeans, a decent t-shirt, and a cardigan. I wasn't wearing a lanyard or anything that would make me look like an employee, but I suppose I could be mistaken for one. Luckily for her, I had just come from the aisle where the item was located. "Oh, I don't work here," I said, "but they're over there by that big air bed hanging from the ceiling." She toddled off, and I made my way over to the clothing section where piles of clothes were stacked on tables. This time, I was standing right beside my trolley when I heard a cheerful, "Excuse me." I turned to see an older woman waving a pair of glasses at me. She thrust her hand out, and I instinctively reached to take what she was giving me. "Somebody left these on the piles of clothes," she said. "What? Oh, wait, no, I don't work." But she had already turned and waddled off. Now I was left standing there with someone's glasses in my hand, mentally scolding myself for mindlessly taking them. I soon spotted someone who actually worked there and asked them to take the glasses. They accepted them and headed to the customer service area. I grabbed my trolley and started pushing it toward the checkout when suddenly the same older woman appeared again out of nowhere. This time, she was dragging along a bewildered-looking older man by the arm. She spotted me instantly, did an exaggerated little jig, flailed her arm in my direction, and jabbed the air with her long, sharp nails. She rushed up to me so fast that the poor man was nearly pulled off his feet. "Oh, I found her. I told you we would. I found your glasses before anyone could take them and gave them to this worker girl. I gave you the glasses, remember? This is the man they belong to give me them," she declared. I said, "Oh, I don't work here, but I gave them to someone who does, and they've taken them to the customer service area." The bewildered man, realizing that I was just another shopper, thanked me and started walking toward the customer service desk. The woman, who had been listening to this exchange with her mouth hanging open, looked from me to him in disbelief. When he tried to walk away, her grip tightened, and she was dragged a few feet before he managed to shake her off. She turned to him again and made another attempt to grab him. "She's lying," the woman whispered. "I'll bet she took your glasses for herself." "Excuse me, what?" I said, completely stunned. The man heard my response and quickly hurried off, leaving her standing there. The woman turned slowly, began fiddling with some nearby items, and pretended to browse. She peeked over her shoulder and saw me still staring at her. What, dear? Did you want something?" she asked innocently. "Did you honestly just tell that man I stole his glasses?" I demanded. "What? I did not. I would never," she huffed. "I said I gave them to you because you work here." "But I don't work here. I told you that several times," I replied. "Yes, you do," she muttered under her breath. Flabbergasted, I gestured toward my trolley, and she leaned over to peer into it suspiciously. "Yes, stocking shelves. Are you?" she said. "Seriously? No, this is my shopping," I snapped. The woman turned fully, placed both hands on the trolley, and inspected its contents. She then reached in and plucked out one of my items. "What are you doing now?" I asked, shocked. "I needed one of these," she said calmly. "What on earth, lady? That's my stuff," I exclaimed. "Well, I never," she gasped, dropping it back into the trolley. I yelled at her to stop and leave me alone, which caught the attention of an employee nearby. It didn't look great. I was clearly upset, and she was trembling slightly, appearing like I had startled her. The employee came over and asked what was going on. Of course, the woman immediately twisted the situation to make me look bad. "Your coworker here doesn't know how to respect people. Get me the manager, I'll have her fired," she snapped. The employee went to get the manager, who arrived a moment later. "Hey, ma'am, how can I help you today?" he asked politely. She pointed at me and said, "You can fire this employee right here before I make a scene." The manager looked at me, confused, and tilted his head as if to ask, "She's talking about you." I nodded and quickly explained the entire situation, how she had mistaken me for an employee, how I had already clarified multiple times that I wasn't, and how she was now accusing me of theft. The manager then turned to her and said, "Ma'am, she doesn't work here. Please leave her alone. If you need help, here's one of our employees who can assist you." Instead of backing down, she kept yelling that he was covering for me, insisting that I was lying. Eventually, the manager called security, who escorted her out of the store and banned her from returning. After thanking the manager and accepting his apology for the trouble, I finally finished my shopping and went to check out. Before I left, I spotted the bewildered man again, this time with his glasses back on. I was relieved to see he got them back in the end. Story 4. Well, this just happened, and I'm still a little in shock. It's a bit of a long story, so hang in tight. I'm a 23-year-old woman, and I always go for a long walk before work in the morning with my 11-month-old Scottish Terrier. He was rescued from a heavily abusive household, so there are still some quirks we're working through together. An important thing to note is that the price for purebred dogs in my country has skyrocketed, and there is currently a waiting list of over a year for people who want to adopt dogs because of the pandemic. There's a city park across the street from my flat with a primary school right next to it. In that park, there's also a dog section where they are allowed to run freely. As I was walking, my dog paused to relieve himself on a tree. I had my earphones in and didn't hear this woman until she came very close to me. When I took them off, she started yelling that dogs were not allowed to relieve themselves on the grass near the school and that I should know better. Because of my dog's history, when he gets nervous, he can stay in the squatting position for several minutes until he feels comfortable. This woman's shouting definitely made him anxious. I immediately apologized and told her that I wasn't aware of any such rule, but would keep that in mind for next time. Since she was very close to me and neither of us were wearing masks, I tried to pull my dog away to find another spot for him. The problem was that he was completely frozen, like a deer caught in headlights, and simply wouldn't budge. Before I could pick him up and walk away, this woman suddenly grabbed my dog by the handle on his harness and started walking off with him. This caused my dog to panic, and he began yelping loudly. I ran up to her, ignoring the fact that neither of us were wearing masks, and tried to grab my dog back. Then, this woman kicked me hard enough that I fell to the ground and said, word for word, "I'm rescuing this dog from you because clearly you're a terrible owner, and he deserves better. My daughter has been waiting for a puppy, and she deserves to have a dog." Thankfully, since we were close to the dog park, I visit 2 or 3 times a day. One of the people I'm friendly with heard the commotion and called the police. My dog has a GPS collar on him because I often go to my family's chalet, where he's allowed to run free in a fenced area designed to keep out bears or other wild animals. We were able to use the app to track my dog, and when the police approached this woman, she made up a story claiming that she was rescuing him and that the world had a funny way of working things out because she'd been looking to get her daughter a pet for being such a good girl. Apparently, dog theft has become more common lately, so there's a procedure the police follow to verify the rightful owner. They asked to see the dog and his tags to confirm that he was registered under my name. When the police asked her to read the details on my dog's tags, she started shouting again, claiming that she had witnessed me mistreating him and that it didn't matter if I technically owned him. She insisted they shouldn't give him back, and that I deserved to be in jail. She was completely unprovoked and seemed convinced she could just take my dog from me. Fortunately, the entire incident happened close enough to the school that there was security camera footage capturing everything. The officer helping me suggested I go to the emergency room because the kick I received was causing a lot of pain. The entitled woman managed to hurt me more than I thought she could, and when the police asked if I wanted to press charges, I agreed. My dog and I are now spending the day on the couch, and I've taken the day off work. The sheer level of entitlement this woman displayed over someone else's pet left me stunned. I truly didn't realize there were people who thought like that until today. Story 5. So I finally feel like posting this after moving to another state. A quick preface here, I have spent the last 5 or so years grumbling, as you do, about people not putting shopping carts in the cart returns of parking lots, because for some reason there's been more and more cases across 2 different states. I've moved way too many times recently of people putting them in places where they block parking spots. I recently made a promise to myself that the next person I see abandoning their shopping cart, I would call it out. Anyways, our story begins at a, you know what, I don't know this sub's views on specifics, so we'll just call it a house warehouse, which is absolutely not a homophone for any real store. I'm shopping there for cardboard boxes alongside my girlfriend, since we'd severely underestimated how many we'd need. And no, what we got wasn't enough anyways, but we would later go to another store to pick up more to avoid any fallout drama. We come out to the parking lot and head back to our car. Well, as fate would have it, the gentleman in the neighboring spot was finishing up his shopping trip too, and he just so happened to be abandoning his cart right in front of our car. And also right in front of me, blocking me from getting to the driver's door of my car without moving his cart. So I'd finally had enough and decided to simply go, "Really?" muffled through a mask, but loudly enough for him to hear it. Now if you were expecting this to resolve itself with any bit of civility, like I naively did that day, you're in for a ride. "Really what?" came his incredulous response. "You're just going to leave the cart there?" And here is where things just went crazy. The man shouts, full-on shouts back, "I don't get paid to push it back." At this point I've moved the cart and have realized that this man is 85% anger, and I've resolved to just keep on going. I'm headed towards my door and he's on the opposite side of his van from me. He then continues to shout, "Do you?" as though it were an insult to push carts back, or get paid to do it. No, You just what? He shuts his open van door at this point and is now standing slightly in front of his vehicle. Unfortunately, my brain is operating off autopilot, which in my case means bad jokes and snark. I just do it because I'm a decent person. The man full-on roars, "I think you've got a smart mouth, huh?" as he rounds his vehicle, and I get to fully see this strung-out but rage-filled man. And he's wrong, because I don't have a smart mouth, as evidenced by my terrible comeback. And I think you have tiny feet. Can't even walk it back. Look, I said bad jokes. And even then, they can't all be winners. Now this is the point where upon hearing that line, you'd expect anyone else to laugh at how dumb that was and maybe just get in his car and drive off. But apparently tiny feet was the worst insult I could have used. "You want to fight? Right here?" "Ha," he screams at me. I do not. My girlfriend is here, and we're about to move, and I've had exactly zero house warehouse parking lot fighting experience in my life. I'm sorry to let you down, Internet. So I get in my car as he rounds his van. My brain has also regained control of my mouth to stop it from commenting on not wanting to smell his maskless stinky breath, which might have gotten a fist through the window. Instead, I just nod at my girlfriend that clearly, we're leaving. I get to hear him go, "Yeah, then just stay in your car." He then peels off absurdly fast for a van. A van. With his company's name and number on it. So we looked them up and online. There's a story on their Yelp of all things saying, "I haven't used them, but one of their drivers almost ran me and my kids off the road, and when I motioned for them to pull over they flipped me off and drove off." I groan and figure there's now an equal chance that this company is going to protect their own as there is that he's going to face consequences. But I figure I'll risk it. So I call up the company, and in the interest of protecting who they are, since I don't want internet sleuths to use that Yelp review that I paraphrased, I'll say they're one of the following sorts of companies: roofing, thong repair, plumbing, or electricians. There, that should cover things. So I consulted with my girlfriend before calling, because even though I got a good look at the guy, I've got a little bit of almost got into a fight in a warehouse parking lot adrenaline in my system, and I want to verify some details. So we both recall what the guy looked like since we unfortunately didn't get a van number. So the phone call goes like this. Hello, this is X company. Can we help you with anything? Yes, I'd like to report an incident with one of your employees who wanted to challenge me to a fight in the parking lot of warehouse off of Large Road just a few minutes ago. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Unfortunately, a lot of our boys use that particular warehouse. Did you happen to get the name or the number of the employee? No, but he was wearing a blue shirt, balding. Did he wear glasses? She asked, knowingly. That's the one, I say, slightly relieved to know that the number I called wasn't just going to get me into a shouting match with an entitled small business owner. She gives a long sigh. I'll go talk with his supervisor. Again, I'm so sorry. He then gets a call from the supervisor telling him that he's fired because of all the fights he keeps picking up with people and that they're tired of all the complaints they get about him. So anyways, the moral of the story is one of the following. Respect store workers and put back your carts. Don't underestimate how much someone cares about their shoe size. And don't threaten to fight someone in a parking lot with your work van right next to you. Story 6. For context, I work in what's essentially a community mental health setting with a focus on substance abuse. As such, we get a lot of interns. That's how I started last year, most of whom are paid, and we keep quite a few who meet expectations, which honestly is a lot of them. We have very little turnover, but a large number of clients, so we tend to have room. We have an intern now who is really testing everyone's patience. She leaves the break room a mess, regularly dirty dishes on the table or in the sink, food crumbs and spills on the counters, and empty wrappers left around. You get the picture. She also failed her course last semester due to not fulfilling her required hours, so she has to repeat it. Now, we all try to show grace because she does have a disability. I'm not sure what exactly, and I refuse to ask. But she freely mentioned it mostly involves difficulty with large motor skills rather than pain. So, we don't judge or assume anything about her work ethic. Maybe she had some bad days and couldn't make it. However, the constant messes are hard to be patient with. Tossing wrappers is on the way out of the kitchen. She literally has to walk past the trash can on her way out. Apparently, it's the same when she uses shared office spaces. Despite having easy access to garbage cans, she leaves her food and wrappers on tables and desks. We've tried politely mentioning it, but she always makes some excuse like, I forgot, or I was going to do it later. Whatever, at this point, it's easier for us to handle it ourselves. We don't know her full struggle, and we try to give her the benefit of the doubt. She's also been routinely complaining about not being offered a job yet. I sympathized and asked if she had been given a firm no. She said no, but that our supervisor was harsh about her notes. I offered to help, and she agreed. When I looked at them, wow, they were dreadful. She had copied and pasted notes from other clients, which led to mistakes in diagnosis, race, and gender information. That's a huge problem since we work in mental health, and insurance documentation can already be a nightmare, even when done correctly. I guided her through fixing it, but she became frustrated and said it was too confusing. Other coworkers in her department provided guided outlines written in simple terms, and she still said it was too hard or too confusing. Like, how does she intend to do this full-time for a government agency, her stated goal? Again, we all tried to show patience and understanding, treating her the way we'd want to be treated. Until today. Oh boy. I'm a plus-sized woman, but I take pride in dressing nicely for the office. I've found good brands and reliable stores, usually spending around $30 to $50 per outfit, sometimes as low as $20 on clearance. She's close to my size and asked where I shop. I told her the stores and price ranges. She said it was too expensive, which I understood, but then asked if I had any clothes I no longer wore that she could have. She was thrilled when I agreed, so I brought in several pieces: shirts, dresses, and shrugs cardigans. She took a few tops, but then frowned at the dresses. "I'm not wearing those," she snapped. "The straps are too thin and will show my undergarments." "Oh, no problem," I said. "I'm the same way, so I wear shrugs or cardigans over them. It keeps me looking professional, and they're pretty inexpensive online if you don't like the ones I brought. I can show you. They're maybe $10 each." "I don't have that kind of money. Don't you have matching ones you can give me?" she demanded. No," I replied. "I'm using the ones I have. The ones I brought are the ones I don't need anymore." "I'm sure you have another one you're not using. I've seen you wear a different white one." "How about that one? You have two." "They're different shades and go with different dresses," I explained. "I use both of them, sorry. But the one you're talking about was $12. I can send you the link if you'd like." "I already told you I'm broke. Can't you just give it to me?" she said sharply. "No, sorry," I answered firmly. "Ugh, fine. Then take these back. I don't want them," she said, tossing the dresses carelessly back into the bag. Meanwhile, she's admitted to ordering out for most of her meals, including from a pretty expensive restaurant chain known for its $12 desserts, which she buys regularly. Like, I don't know, maybe you could buy your own sweater if you didn't spend so much on $30 pasta and $12 cake every week. Or at least be polite and thankful when someone hands you about $200 worth of free clothing that you could absolutely look great in with just a $10 sweater. I really tried to view it from her perspective and rationalize it through the lens of her disability, but I don't think there's any excuse for being so entitled about free clothes. Whatever, hopefully she enjoys the tops. At least they're not ending up at a thrift store for $1.50 or something.